Hello, my darlings. I'm just adjusting, trying to make certain that you can see me properly. And it is oh, you probably can't hear me. Hold on just a second. I'm going to put on my microphone. I forgot about that. I am also going to remove my jacket. I know the horror, the improperness of it all. But it is quite warm, and here in 1890, we don't have air conditioners yet, so I'm going to just put that on. Strangely enough, we obviously have smartphones and microphones, so that's great. Oh, that's a little better. It's warm, but it's a little better. Now, to plug you in so that you can be uncomfortably close, as Nye once said. Put that right there. Hello, my darlings. Hello and welcome to The Gentleman Psychic. As you know, we are continuing to read The Doctor and the Devil, and you may notice a few things are slightly different than what you usually see. I had this idea to put mirrors in my seance parlor. Typically, they will tell you that's not a good idea. You're not supposed to do that because it can be quite, it can open up portals. But I thought, let's throw caution to the wind. And then it came to me in a dream and I went, yeah, let's do that. So there are now, there's a mirror here, there's a mirror there, a mirror here, a mirror there, and a mirror there. So it creates sort of a portal. Can you hear me properly, everyone? If you can hear me, let me know that it sounds good. And forgive me again, I'm going to be a little bit more improper. I feel like a striptease, you know, because I am quite warm. I don't have the windows open yet, but I'm going to take off those. I'll roll that up like that. I don't have the fans on because you can hear it in here, and I don't want... Oh, that's nice. This fan is nice. I have fans, you know. This is one. I did that little pattern there. I just took off these cufflinks. I love them. I want to show a little show and tell. These are probably some of my favorite jewelry. They're these little devils. They're from the 60s, and they have the jaw moves. Articulated jaws. So yeah, I love those. Anyway, without further ado, ladies, gentlemen, boils and ghouls, and those who remain undecided, we continue now with The Doctor and the Devil, or The Midnight Adventures of Dr. Parkhurst. Chapter 11. But when the discreet attorney's office caused the arrest of 4 women, the police were surprised. I verily believe that up to this time they had not thought there was going to be much trouble over the doctor's revelations. I suppose, to quote somebody else's words, that they were like the people in Noah's time when the flood began booming, and who said that it was not going to be so much of a shower and they couldn't bother about building a boat anyhow. And the force was still more greatly surprised, too, when all of the Metropolitan Police inspectors were summoned before the grand jury. The present head of the department, who, it is claimed, is only nominally its chief by certain people, and all his fellow inspectors were told to appear before the grand jury. One day, they were all in the grand jury room, when one of them edged over to me and engaged me in a conversation. Attempted bribery. "Come up some day to police headquarters," he remarked smilingly. "After this thing is over, I would like to have a little talk with you about my district, as I haven't many friends in the department." I told the genial inspector that I feared from what I knew there was too much malaria around police headquarters to venture up there. "Say, old fellow," added the speaker, I'm a poor man, and there isn't any money in my district. I can't talk with you here, but wish you would come up. Where can we be found?" "At my house," I replied, "any time you let me know." On March 27th, 1892, the inspector's roundsman called on me at my residence. I was not home. So he left word that he would call the following night. I thought that this might be one of those beautiful marked bill schemes for which the New York police have so much reputation in unearthing when it is necessary to stop any particular man who is annoying them. So I asked Dr. Parkhurst what to do, at the same time explaining the matter to him. "It would probably be as well," I suggested, "to have someone overhear our conversation, Doctor." "Most assuredly so," he replied. "How many men do you want to overhear you?" "I should like 2, I returned. "He told me to see Mr. Irving, and also 2 other gentlemen in his congregation, who probably would not object to crawling under my bed in a room and acting as amateur detectives. And I was considerably amused when the doctor handed me 2 letters of introduction to 2 very popular young men in his charge. Each letter read: New York, March 28th, 1892, number 133rd East 35th Street. Dear Mr. This will introduce you to Mr. C.W. Gardner, who has been of great assistance to me in the work in which I have been engaged during the past 4 or 5 weeks. There is a service which he would very much like to have you render him. I suggested your name to him, and the thing that he would like to have you do, you can do without any compromise of character, and the aid which you would render may prove in the issue to be most valuable. Yours, very sincerely, C. H. Parkhurst. The first gentleman I called on was out. Irving, however, and a second gentleman I had a letter to agreed to attend this non-compromising matter for me. This latter gentleman was, and still is, a prominent official and very wealthy Broadway bank, of a very wealthy Broadway bank. Irving and the other assistant reached my house at number 207 West 18th Street, along in the dusk of the evening of the date on which the call was to be made, about half an hour before the roundsman was to visit me. What one of the doctor's congregations overheard from under a bed. The only available place in which to hold the meeting was in my bedroom, and absolutely the only place to conceal my amateur detectives was under my bed. "I say, Irving," I said, "you will have to get in under this bed." Even our banker friend smiled at the comical situation when Irving kneeled down, took his hat off, and disappeared under the bed. But unfortunately, the young man's legs were too long, and his feet and several inches of his legs stuck out. "Pull in your feet, Irving," I shouted. "Can't," replied a muffled voice from under the bed. "I've got 'em reefed as much as I can." Try the best we could. We could not place Irving so that his feet would not show unless we doubled him up in the middle like a pantaloon at the circus. And he refused to be doubled, so we finally decided to place our banker friend under the bed, as he was shorter than Irving. The second attempt was a success, as Mr. Banker fitted nicely. Arrangements were made with another friend to be placed where he could set the messenger of the inspector, so that there would be no question as to the identification of the man when he called. Promptly on time, the ambassador from Mulberry Street rang the doorbell of my house. He was requested to send in his card, as I wished to get sure evidence all around concerning the visit. The card of the caller was sent to me. I received it, and I have it now among my papers. "Hello there, Charlie," said the roundsman, when he entered my room. "How are you?" "Pretty well," I replied. "What's up?" "The inspector wanted me to come and have a talk with you. You've worked yourself into a damned, it's marked out, but it says a damned good job now." They're all scared of old man Parkhurst. The inspector is good fellow, and he thinks a good deal of you. There are only a few good people in our district who are the friends of the inspector, and he would like to have 'em looked after." The speaker then said that it was understood that I had secured evidence against one of the places his principal wanted left alone. "Now, you and I can take a nice, quiet little business together," added the roundsman. "I do the old man's collecting, and we'll fix it up so that you will get a bone out of it without taking any chances. I'll collect the stuff, and you won't have to do any business yourself." "I see," I replied. "Yes," continued the police headquarters roundsman, if you work your points right, you can get out of this business in a year with more than a police captain has. Why, Charlie, there is a brownstone house uptown in this for you." I told the roundsman that while the Society for the Prevention of Crime agents might have evidence against the man he wished protected, who, by the way, was a wealthy backer of the faro banks in his city, that I had none. "I know where some of the Society agents," returned the roundsman, "are backing faro up in Harlem. I afterward ascertained this to be true. I may as well inform you." "Now look here, Charlie," urged the roundsman. "You can easily find out whether Parkhurst gang have got any evidence against this friend of the inspector. If you do call me up on the telephone at the police headquarters and let me know, you can say, 'All right, if no evidence has been found,' and say it's going to rain. If they have, and I'll know what it means, and can give the fellow the usual office," slang for warning him, "so that he can lay low. Then, next week, I'll shake the boys down," slang for squeezing blackmail money out of the gamblers, for you." Then we changed the conversation because the roundsman kept questioning me as to what the doctor did at Hattie Adams. "I'd have given 100 to have been there," he laughed. "On the level, Charlie. What'd the old man do?" But I wasn't telling tales out of school. During the conversation, I lay across the bed, smoking a cigar. I turned over when we had got about as far as to assume an easier position, and in doing so loosened a bed slat, which went tumbling down on the back of my concealed amateur detective. "Oh!" I heard him grunt. Then I talked loud and had a fearful attack of simulated coughing. Had the roundsman not been Hattie Adams' joint, he would certainly have seen that all he said was being overheard. This conversation did not end in my agreeing to take tribute money from the vicious, so I escorted the roundsman to the sidewalk. When I returned, I found my amateur detective seated in a chair, a little scant of breath and a little bit angry over the bed slat episode. "Did you hear all of that conversation?" I queried. "I did," was the reply. "I would not have believed it had I not heard it. Why, it was an invitation for you to blackmail the gamblers by police aid. There are two little points to be made here, let me add. In the first place, this was the first case where Dr. Parkhurst had any real evidence of police blackmail. In the second place, it showed that the police were really frightened at a shadow, for up to that time we only had suspicions that they were shaking people down. I took pains the following day to instruct a friend to telephone to the police headquarters to the roundsman that it was going to rain. Although I had no earthly idea whether the Parkhurst agents had any evidence or not against the inspector's friend, and I was not surprised to hear that the office had reached him and that the Parkhurst men had been after his scalp. Chapter 12. The very next bomb that burst in the Great Crusade was in the famous presentment of the grand jury made March 31st, 1892. It was the crowning point of career of Dr. Parkhurst as a crusader, for had the grand jury not made the presentment favoring the Parkhurst charges, the whole affair would have dropped into oblivion right here. But the presentment made it imperative that Dr. Parkhurst's charges be investigated. Presentment against the police. Briefly told, the police department of New York was arranged by a jury of which Henry M. Tabor was foreman for allowing gambling places to exist in defiance of the law, for allowing disorderly houses to run without suppression, and in allowing the sale of liquor in saloons at unlawful hours. The present situation certainly warrants the condemnation of the police department in the matter above mentioned, adds the grand jury. The force is paid liberally for the work of enforcing the law. They do enforce the law in many respects in a superior manner, but if they had permitted to discriminate in favor of certain forms of crime, for reasons well known to themselves, there is no telling where the same course will lead them to, or leave the interests of our city. Circumstances and testimony offered have tended to show financial considerations in cases of lax administration. Indeed, the publicity with which the law is violated and the immunity from arrest enjoyed by the lawbreaker is inconsistent with any other theory. It is obvious that when the confession by a lawbreaker of payment for protection would subject him to penalties, not only for his acknowledged crime, but also for bribe-giving, it is extremely difficult to collect trustworthy evidence in direct proof of such charges. It has been thought best at the present to go no further than to make this general presentment, so that the courts and residents of our city may properly be informed and warned against the dangerous evil that is in the midst of us. The bomb hoisted the district attorney's office and police headquarters about a mile and a half high. When both institutions reached the earth again, they dazed of... I need some water, I'm sorry, it is very warm. When both institutions reached the earth again, and the dazed officials had regained a bit of their shaken wits once more, they began to look about to see what they could do to make the public believe that they took their little lesson to heart. So they decided to transfer police captains from police precinct to police precinct. The then chief of police resigned and was succeeded by the present nominal incumbent. 2 police captains did not wish to be transferred from their old stands, and having by hard daily labor and self-denial, accumulated enough money, which, added to their police pension when they left the force, would make a fair income, decided to resign. This they did, and now are facing the cold, cold world with only a few $100,000 apiece between them and starvation. By the way, a few $100,000 in 1890 was... That's a lot of money. A fake shake-up. A general shake-up followed. This captain in a downtown precinct was sent to an uptown one. The captain on the west side was transferred over to the east side, and so on. There, said the officials, as they proudly pointed to their work, see, dear public, how we have met these charges. But the public was only being hoodwinked. If you will take a list of the police captains prior to the shake-up and a list of the positions they occupied after their transfer, you will find that policemen affiliated with Tammany Hall had been sent to the fat precinct, such as the Tenderloin, 19th Precinct. 4th Oak Street, 6th Elizabeth Street, 10th Mulberry Street, 11th Eldridge Street, 15th Mercer Street, 14th 1st Avenue and 5th Street, 18th East 22nd Street, 21st East 35th Street, and the 22nd West 47th Street. Dr. Parkhurst was not gulled by the checkerboard shake-up, for it was the same old board, mind you, and the same old checkers. What difference does it make, he said to me one day after the transfers, whether Captain Tom is over in the Tenderloin precinct or Captain Bill? Does not the same soil exist in the Tenderloin? Don't you suppose the snake root, when transplanted, soon has its tendrils rooting just as firmly as ever in the new soil? I am not deluded, even if the public is, by this silly piece of business. Unfortunately, the grand jury meanwhile had not attended to 500 cases besides those of Andrea, Adams, Laurent, and Huston women, which I had gathered undeniable evidence in. They left the cases to the jury, which was to follow them only, however, for lack of time. In the meantime, all the disorderly resorts ran right along, and by guardedly the police gave the office, as usual, and District Attorney Nicole contented himself with writing to property owners complained against that they rented certain of their houses for disorderly purposes. These notices naturally caused the property owners notified to hurry to the District Attorney's office. For years, although clearly violating the law, property owners had been receiving rental far in excess of their legitimate value of the property rented, because it was occupied by disorderly people. The District Attorney's office was nonplussed, aside from efforts of certain subordinates to engage legal aid selected by these subordinates. The district attorney was in the habit of sending all of these property owners to me. Just what I had to do about the matter I failed to understand. However, I used to receive half a dozen subpoenas a day summoning me to appear at the various civil courts in the city as witnesses in the disposes suits brought by property owners against their disorderly tenants. The Society for the Prevention of Crime did not care to assume the expense of paying me for the time occupied in testifying in these civil cases, and I was not at all anxious to spend months on the witness stand at the magnificent salary of 25 cents per day. Dr. Parkhurst's opinion of the situation just then is told in a letter I received from him in regard to this matter. This is it. Dictated. Number 133rd, East 35th Street, New York, April 14th, 1892. My dear sir, I have received your note written today. It seems to me that the District Attorney's office is imposing upon our good nature and setting us at work to secure evidence. In regard to the case that we have on hand, the District Attorney is assisted by men who are receiving $7,500 a year. If they want to turn half of that money into the treasury of the Society for the Prevention of Crime, we will go to work and help them, but let the people do work that get the money for it. I have no special interest in those suits anyway. Nicole has, or ought to have, means of their own for securing evidence, and if he has not, he might be allowed to go on and poorly prepare his case and get another scoring from Recorder Smith. However, act your own pleasure in the matter. I have not personally sufficient confidence in Nicole to make me disposed to wear myself out in the interests of the attorney's office. Yours, very sincerely, C. H. Parkhurst. Mr. C. W. Gardner, number 207 West 18th Street. The result of this state of affairs was that nearly every disorderly person remained in business, as if no Dr. Parkhurst lived. The mighty hand of the law they were violating kept them from coming to harm. Chapter 13. The Society for the Prevention of Crime then took a new tack. It gathered a vast quantity more evidence against brothel keepers, saloon owners, and gambling house maintainers. Then it presented the facts to the district attorney's office and was told to go to the police justices of the city and get warrants. As the police justices, with 3 exceptions, were all Tammany men, every possible impediment was placed in the way of the society's agents. After 3 months' work of these agents, all that had been accomplished was in securing the revocation of the licenses of 3 saloon keepers at an outlay of a great deal of money. And what seemed queerest of all to Dr. Parkhurst was that there appeared to be an underground channel between the police court employees and disorderly people. For whenever a society agent produced a warrant for these arrests for a criminal, the offender always received information of the fact in advance. So Dr. Parkhurst called me in to see if I could not accomplish what the agents of the Society for the Prevention of Crime had failed to do. Oh, my thing is falling. It doesn't like that very much. There we go. It's a little high. Maybe next time I'll go a little lower. I found that in the 3 anti-Tammany police justices in the office, there were the only ones to be depended upon to grant warrants to us, but they were not presiding over districts where most of the offenses had been committed. In the making of the police justice assignments, Tammany Hall, having apparently taken great care to send their own justices where there was danger of our agents wanting warrants and sidetracking the anti-Tammany justices over the districts where we should not want to get warrants. A queer case. To substantiate this point, let me tell you a little incident. I had procured evidence against Warren Lewis's concert hall at number 352 8th Street. The place had been licensed by the mayor of the city under the concert laws, and in addition, its proprietor, Lewis, was hand and glove with many prominent Tammany Hall leaders. On May 5th, 1892, accompanied by 3 of my employees and 2 other witnesses, I visited Lewis's place. We remained there between midnight and 2 o'clock. We found that the excise law was violated and that the concert law was violated by women who sang on the stage, boldly walking around the hall and soliciting patrons of the place to buy them drinks. On May 14th, 1892, I again visited Lewis's place and found the same condition of affairs existing. In company with one of our agents, I sat at a table, drinking, and was again solicited by women to treat, and also to accompany them to places near at hand. Lewis, the proprietor of the place, knew me, and when he stopped to speak to me, I showed him a copy of a newspaper containing an account of my first visit to his place. "I don't give a damn about the papers," he said. "You know how Lavery stands with the powers. Of course, if you people want to make trouble for us, you can, but you're a friend of Lavery's, and if you want any stuff, all you gotta do is ask for it." In the company of 5 other persons, I again visited the place on May 28th, 1892. I saw Lewis downstairs in the basement where is the bar at which his waiters procure drinks for his customers, of the concert garden overhead. Over the bar hung a Board of Excise license dated February 1892. One of my companions accompanied a woman at her request whom he met in the garden at a house at number 223 West 30th Street, kept by Catherine Moore. On May 30th, 1892, another agent of mine repeated his performance, which made me believe that Catherine Moore House was the favored spot. On Sunday, June 5th, 1892, 2 of my employees bought whiskey in the garden, and then I ascertained that the owner of the premises occupied by Lewis, according to the records at the office of the Receiver of Taxes, was William Simon. I corroborated this bit of evidence at the Title Guarantee Company. I also learned that Charles C. Cromwell owned the house, number 223 West 30th Street, occupied as a house of assignation by the Moore women. I then called at the district attorney's office and asked Mr. Nicole to write to these property owners that their premises were being occupied by disorderly persons. On the same day, I applied to police justice and then sitting in the Essex Market Police Court for warrants for the arrest of Lewis for violation of the excise law and for keeping a disorderly house, I also asked for a warrant for the arrest of Catherine Moore. as these houses are in the district where Justice Grady sits and then Justice Kilbreth, to whom I applied. It would be a better course for the society to go before Judge Grady and apply for warrants. If he refuses to grant warrants without just cause, I will grant them. When I called upon Justice Grady, he told me to come again with my witnesses, and if he found I had secured sufficient evidence, he would grant the warrants. Justice Grady, at the indicated time, heard the evidence, but refused to grant a warrant for the arrest of Lewis on the charge of keeping a disorderly house, but granted one upon a charge of violating the excise laws. On Tuesday, June 7, 1892, I appeared at Jefferson Market Police Court, where I learned that Lewis had been arrested by Police Captain Westervelt of the 20th Precinct. Some of the things are coming up, but I am alone today, and I don't have someone to sort of keep up with the conversation, so I'm very, very sorry. The questions that you are asking, oh, my thing keeps bumping down. Anyway, I have no one to answer the questions. Yes, I can't see you because I'm reading the book, so it'll pop up shortly. I'll see the comments later. I will respond in kind afterwards. Thank you. Where was I? Grady adjourned the case for several days, bail being furnished for Lewis by John Lavery, ex-deputy sheriff, the man whom Lewis had told me had a pull. The Moore women, who also arrested but was discharged, and the Lewis case was settled by Justice Grady. Reserving his decision was made, although I applied to Clerk Farley of the Jefferson Market Court several times for information. I later asked Justice Grady to issue a warrant for the arrest of Lewis on the charge of keeping a disorderly house, but the justice said he would consider the matter and give me an answer some other time. I never pressed the matter further, as I did not think his attitude fair to the society. The Society for the Prevention of Crime in this matter appealed to the general term of the Supreme Court upon the claim that Justice Grady's ruling refusing them permission to be presented by counsel when Lewis was arraigned was illegal. The general term handed down a decision finally upholding the justice of the Society's claim. I next took the matter of violation of the excise laws by Lewis to the Board of Excise. But one of my main witnesses was drugged while on business for the Society and laid in a street. A policeman carted him to the station house, where it took a police surgeon 24 hours to resuscitate him. Subsequently, he was arraigned in Jefferson Market Police Court, where after he told his story, he was discharged. The other witnesses also mysteriously disappeared. Afterward, I located him at work at cigar stand at Coney Island, directly opposite to a concert hall conducted by Lewis's brother. He was out of the jurisdiction of the Board of Excise, you understand. So when the case of Lewis came up before the Board of Excise, one of my main witnesses was incapacitated from attending the trial, and the other one was missing. I withdrew the complaint with the best grace as possible, and Lewis and I went out and got a ball together, thus ending the duel. But now to return to the good Reverend Dr. Parkhurst. He, as well as myself, had been called in civil justice court to give evidence in disposes proceedings begun against Hattie Adams. The doctor wrote me as follows. New York, April 5th, 1892. Number 133 East 35th Street. Dear Mr. Gardner, I must see you tonight or tomorrow morning before 8:30 without fail. Yours very sincerely, C.H. Parkhurst. Please bring your notes of the visit we made to Hattie Adams' house. I called according to the request, and the doctor said he wanted to compare notes regarding the visit we had paid. I refreshed his memory as much as possible, and the doctor afterward appeared in the 6th District Court before Justice Leachman and guardedly told the story of the orgies at Hattie Adams. But he did not tell what I had already told you, as illegal objections from the attorneys engaged in the case barred the press from that story. As soon as the doctor had testified, he left the courtroom without my seeing him. For this reason, I received the following explanatory letter from him. New York, April 6th, 1892. Number 133 East 35th Street. My dear Mr. Gardner, the enclosed letter I opened by mistake, not noticing from the exterior that it was not intended for me. I am going out of town this noon, if nothing unforeseen occurs to prevent. My week has been pretty badly cut into. I hope you had a good time on the witness stand yesterday. Was sorry I couldn't remain and see you, though. I thought it possible that I might get irritated by the counsel for the defendant, but the ridiculousness of the performance, especially with that little squirt of a lawyer questioning me and expounding to me my duties as minister of the gospel. All of that was so amusing that it would have been impossible for me to have been irritated even had I been otherwise disposed to be so, which I was not. Shall write you while I'm away. Yours very sincerely, C.H. Parkhurst. That little squirt. My camera keeps falling. It's not ghost, it's just a weight. Anyway, that little squirt, by the way, was a rather good way of putting it. But the doctor is always epigrammatic. The news of the result of the proceedings, which ended in the Adams woman being found not guilty, caused a jubilation at the district attorney's office, and thinking I fancy that the civil court was a pointer as to how the cases at the district attorney's office would end, Dr. Parkhurst was served with notices of trial in the Adams, Andrea, Laurent, and Huston cases. Just as he was on his way out of town, as he wrote to me, it was as follows. Lakewood, New Jersey, April 7th, 1892. Dear Mr. Gardner, I have just come here for 3 or 4 days, have already a typewritten letter which I will mail you from here. I write to say that I have a pretty accurate idea as to our visits on the 3rd and 4th Streets. I wish you would at once send me your memoranda of those visits, that I may compare with my own. Please answer the following questions. What was the date of our visit at number 138 and number 140 West 3rd Street and at number 42 West 4th Street? What was the time of our visit in each case? How long did we remain? How many girls in each? I think we had nothing but beer. How many times did we have beer? Please answer these questions at once and direct to me as on the opposite page. Yours very sincerely, C.H. Parkhurst. Care F.P. Freeman, Lakewood, New Jersey. P.S. I wish you would not communicate to anyone the fact of my being here. C.H.P. Since I received the Lakewood letter, to my mind, there is a nice field of speculation in the fact that the President of the United States has great fondness for Lakewood, and that he is very friendly with the Freeman family. Dr. Parkhurst was visiting the Freemans, and we all know that there is no love lost between Tammany Hall and Grover Cleveland. But then, I am not to try to speculate in this little history of the Parkhurst Crusade, but must move on to more stirring events. The doctor as a witness. On April 12th, 1892, the trial of Hattie Adams began in the Court of General Sessions. Dr. Parkhurst had returned from Lakewood and was placed on the witness stand. Irving and the writer was also had to testify. The defense was a desperate and dirty one, as while it was acknowledged that the evidence we had would not give the Adams woman a faint chance of escape, it was hoped that the evidence would curb the doctor's usefulness as a reformer. The trial ended in the conviction of Hattie Adams and her imprisonment. The trial of Maria Andrea quickly followed. The doctor and all the engineers of the campaign met at the office of the Society's attorney, Frank Moss, prior to the trial and talked over matters. It was decided to fight all attempts to show that the doctor had witnessed French vice, for fear that the district attorney, if it was freely admitted, would try to bring out the point where we were committing a misdemeanor in witnessing the exhibition. At the Andrea trial, she too was knocked out and was sent to the penitentiary for 9 months. During her trial happened the sensational attack of nervous prostration which overcame my friend Irving. Irving is a member of New York's bluest-blooded aristocracy. He is descended from Stephen Van Rensselaer, the patron of Albany. He is a society man, too, a graduate of Columbia College, a member of the Calumet Club, and thorough good fellow. He became interested in the work of the Society for the Prevention of Crime while a member of the doctor's church congregation, and readily assisted him when requested in the work at hand. Now I suppose that his refined sensibilities, which had stood the racket, when with us on the slumming tour of the doctor, could not stand the telling of what he saw. His unfortunate sobriquet of Sunbeam was saddled by Dr. Parkhurst upon him, who said that he was as pure as a sunbeam or dancing ray of light. One moment. Sunbeam was saddled by Dr. Parkhurst upon him, who is said that he was a pure sunbeam of dancing ray of light, or something like that. At all events, Jenny Laurent, when called for trial, pleaded guilty and threw herself upon the mercy of the court. She presented the certificate of marriage, contracted after we had visited her house, and as she had closed her resort and was said to be leading a quiet life, the doctor offered no obligation to the application of her counsel for suspension of sentence. Eliza Huston closed her resort and left her bondsman in the lurch by running away to Europe. I have never heard, however, that her bond was fortified. Next in the sequence of my story comes the celebrated mass meeting of citizens at Cooper Union on the evening of May 26, 1892, under the auspices of the Society of the Prevention of Crime. Such well-known men as Reverend J. N. Halleck, ex-Judge William H. Arno, ex-Judge Noah Davis, Rabbi F. de Sola Mendez, the Reverend Dr. David J. Burrell, Frank Moss, and Robert Blishart, Secretary of the Central Labor Union, spoke to a vast crowd. The members of the Society for the Prevention of Crime feared that Dr. Parkhurst would be assassinated at the meeting, and they instructed me to guard the doctor on his way from his house to Cooper Union. And during the session, so I had 10 private detectives distributed throughout the audience. Not a bad thing for me, as I was being paid $6 apiece for each of them for a night service, and was paying them at a rate of $4 a week, so to see that no tragedy happened, and none did. I am very happy to say. My hair is still like that? Yes, my hair is still like that, yes. Now, really, I did not think that there was much danger to the doctor, except that he might have got accidentally clubbed by a copper had he tried to walk to the meeting, but I escorted him from the house to Cooper Institute, along with another detective. We both had big clubs, and we placed the doctor between us on the back seat of the carriage. There was no attack made on us. Dr. Parkhurst was in fine shape at the meeting, and he scored the police for their venality unmercifully. We are in the cleansing business, he concluded. When a man contemplates washing himself, he washes himself with the water, with the single purpose of getting the dirt off. The object of this movement is to remove that increment which rests upon us as the civic body. Immediately after this meeting of the Society for Prevention of Crime decided that they had no further use for the superintendent of their society and his gang of baseball detectives. There was no formal discharge of anybody. Vice President Whitney simply went early one morning to the Society's room at number 923 Broadway and put in new combination lock on the door, shutting out all the organization's old agents forever and ever. On June 1st, 1892, Dr. Parkhurst and Mrs. Parkhurst sailed for Europe to summer, as they usually do, on Vevey on Lake Geneva in Switzerland. The doctor's stateroom was filled with beautiful flowers. I presume that none of the police sent him any of the floral attributes. I think that, my darlings, is where we're going to end for the evening. I have never read this book before, and I have to say, I really hope that the doctor gets what's coming to him, because he is, he's kind of not a kind individual. Oh, it keeps sagging. I will get that fixed. Again, to all of the people who have sent me questions and remarks, if you have suggestions for books that you would like for me to read, yes, please put them in the comments down below. I try to do ones that are, within the copyright, fair, public domain or whatever. So that would be lovely. If not, if you're the author and you would like me to read, suggest it, and I can do that for you too. Make certain to check out my Patreon under The Gentleman's House, and look for thegentlemanpsychic.com on the Instagram, on the Facebook. And with that, my beauties, I am so grateful that you are here. Thank you, even though it's hot and my light keeps sagging. I appreciate you, and I will see you next time. Thank you.